My piece that I'm going to be presenting about is Edward Steichen's The Flatiron Building, Evening, New York, 1905. So I'm going to talk about the photograph, the man, and the context surrounding this photograph. So the photograph was taken in 1904. This specific print was run off in 1905. There are only 3 prints known in existence that were all donated to the Metropolitan Museum of Art by Alfred Stieglitz. And the particular print that we'll be talking about was deaccessioned by the Met, probably because they were already in possession of 2 other copies. And it was purchased by Karen and Kevin Kennedy, and now it rests in a place of honor in the center on the left side of their dining room, so over that beautiful little table that they have. It's really nicely displayed there. So the most important part of this print is probably the coloration of the print and the fact that it is a color photo, because at this point in time, color photo was something that, especially in American art, hadn't really been explored yet. And Steichen was really trying to make an argument with color photography. As Emma said, Strand was not really a pictorialist in the sense of trying to make an allegory to painting, whereas Steichen was literally the definition of the pictorialist photographer who was trying to make that very definite argument that painting was as of equal to, that photography was as of equal to painting. And one of the ways that he did this was by using color photography. This color was added by painting a light-sensitive suspension of pigment onto the print so that it was done after the print was made in a darkroom. And it really shows the artist's hand, because he really, if you look at this photograph, it's not a really even pigmentation. He really did it selectively to kind of imply this existence of fog in the photograph. And I think that's really important because it shows how a photographer can alter and change the meaning of a photograph and change the aesthetic of a photograph and have just as much control over the aesthetic of a photograph that a painter can. I think it's really important that we look at the composition of this photograph in comparison to painting, because it is very balanced in this cross-section of the building rising in the background and the tree branches that come across and define the horizontal stretch of the painting. I think this, the photograph. So I think this photograph is also a really good example of the decisive moment, which is something that only a photograph can capture, is this coming together of all of these elements. This photograph was taken at just the right time for these buggies to be going by. You can see the camera blur in this person right here from the motion of the person moving. You can see the reflection in the wet pavement, which you wouldn't be able to see at any other point of the day. And I think it's really important that this photograph is also taken at a very ambiguous time of day. Each print that exists is a different color. So one is yellow, one is like a tan gray, which kind of implies more of a nighttime. This one is more of a dusk implication because there's still this glow of color. Can't really see it on the monitor very well, but it's like this very gentle blue glow that you can only get right after the sun has set. So now I'll be showing you a painting. This is Charles Eden. He's an American tonalist painter. I think that it's important to show you paintings that Steichen would have been inspired by, because Steichen was a painter himself, and he took a lot of his influences from the painters of his time. And I think that this particular photograph is very similar in composition as well as in mood. It shows a very particular time of day. There's this beautiful reflection of the water. The way these trees are silhouetted is very similar to the way the trees are silhouetted in this photograph. So now I'm going to talk about Steichen himself. He was from Europe, and I think that that's important because he really connected to European art in a way that a lot of American artists didn't. Of course, he is very famous for photographing Rodin and his beautiful pieces and Rodin's studio, and he took frequent trips to France, especially to Paris. And I think that European art really helped him develop his style. He helped Stieglitz open 291. He supported Stieglitz financially. 291 was opened in one of the rooms of the little galleries, actually used to be Steichen's studio. So he was really, connected to that movement and connected to Stieglitz personally. They were best friends. He was the most frequently featured artist in Stieglitz's camera work. And I think it's really important to note that he was the first modern fashion photographer, because fashion has become this really important branch of American modern art. If anyone needs a quick example of it, just look at the whole branch of the Met that's dedicated to an annual exhibition of fashion. And I think without Steichen's development of the fashion photography realm, it wouldn't be as important as it is today. He was later on a war photographer in World War II, and he became the director of photography at MoMA. So this is a photograph by Alfred Stieglitz. It was taken 1 year earlier in 1903, and I think I wanted to show you this one because a lot of people think that Steichen's photograph was a direct response to this photograph, and it shows really well their different influences as photographers. Stieglitz was highly inspired by Japanese woodcuts, and you can kind of see that in this really lovely wintry scene with an emphasis on the foreground. And it's kind of flat. If you look at the way that it's faded and the photograph doesn't really pop the way that Steichen's does, it's not as high in contrast. It's really, really gentle and soft, and it's a really different influence than the tonalist painters that Steichen was looking to. So obviously you can't talk about Steichen without talking about Stieglitz and the Photosecessionists. He was a really big part of that movement. He was the essential pictorialist, and it's really important that this photograph is very emblematic of that. And it's really important that we talk about how this photograph is emblematic of the birth of modern art in America was in New York City. And the Flatiron building was kind of emblematic of everything new that was happening in New York City, because it was built in 1902. And at the time, a lot of people thought it was gaudy. They thought it was too tall. It stuck out like a sore thumb. They didn't like it. But Steichen and Stieglitz here have kind of embraced the building and kind of let it be known that they think it's something beautiful, something to be represented in art even. And that's kind of how people felt about modern art. They thought it was gaudy. They thought it stuck out like a sore thumb. And this is sort of Stieglitz and Steichen saying, no, everything that's new about New York City is what's beautiful about it, everything that's changing about America. So Steichen and Stieglitz selected this particular photograph in a really important exhibition, which was held in Buffalo, New York in 1910. Which ties it to this region. So I think it's really important that we're bringing this photograph back here for another important exhibition of early American modern art. And it was shown in the very first exhibition at 291, as well as 5 separate exhibitions at the Met. So it really does have a storied exhibition history. So if there's anything I want you guys to take away from this, it's that this photograph is really emblematic of the birth of American modern art, how it changed, how mediums changed, and how Steichen was really instrumental in that, and basically just this was the turn of the 20th century. This was the beginning of modern art.